What's up YouTube, it's the one and only Legend of Winning, aka Low, and I'm back with another episode of the NBA Preview. Now for those out there who missed the last episode, as always, I'll leave an annotation in the top right hand corner, link in the description, and if you watch the video in its entirety, not only will there be an annotation to the last episode, but also an annotation to a playlist, so you can catch up, binge watch all of the episodes in the NBA Preview to where we are right now. Now finally people, we are in the top 3, and actually there are only 3 teams in the NBA that I personally feel, as of today, have a legitimate chance of winning the NBA title. Because of this, the format will change a little bit this episode and for the last 2, but it'll still be fairly entertaining. Now today's episode we are talking about the Cleveland Cavaliers, their hopes of winning a championship, and the possibility of LeBron leaving the organization after the season is up. But before I get ahead of myself, the Cleveland Cavaliers over the past 3 years have made the NBA Finals every single season. Some people may make the argument that it's just because of weak Eastern Conference, but I cannot lie, LeBron James is a really good player, and with his contributions along with Kyrie Irving, Kevin Love, and a pretty solid supporting cast, even if they were in the Western Conference, you can make a very legitimate argument that they probably should be in the finals every single year themselves. Now speaking of Kyrie Irving, that was probably the biggest news that happened over the past few months. Kyrie Irving demanded a trade, which really blew a lot of people by surprise because if anything, and including myself, we all assumed that Kevin Love was going to be the first piece to be moved if this organization needed to push themselves in a different direction. But Kyrie Irving is now the odd man out. They brought in a couple of pieces along with Isaiah Thomas, Jay Crowder, and even beyond that trade, they also added some pretty significant pieces to this team as well. Derrick Rose, Jeff Green, and obviously D Wade. The organization really anteed up even after losing their general manager and David Griffin, brought in Kobe Altman, and ever since then the organization has really moved in a very positive direction, especially because we are all really concerned if LeBron will make that transition to another organization after this season is up. But after everything that's happened this offseason, not going to front to people, they did a really good job, kudos to them, and that actually transitions us to our summer of social media for our clip of the day.
Holla at me when they so, bro.
Help. Hit the rolling stone with the rollie on. Jack portfolio. So you lonely?
Now I know a lot of people are going to ask me this question, and I will give you my answer later on in the video, but I just don't think LeBron really cares that much as of right now. I believe that LeBron is in the mentality of, I have to stay focused on what's going on this season before I can have focus on what's going to happen after this season, because you have to be all in if you want to be committed to winning a championship. Not to say that it's never ran across his mind, but all through the summer, LeBron, it just came across like he didn't really care because he has bigger fish to fry moving forward. Speaking of which, let's go ahead and transition to our depth charts and our contracts, because there's a lot of things going on with the Cleveland Cavaliers in this next season. Now first, like we do always, let's look at these contracts. Jose Calderon, Jeff Green, Derrick Rose, and D Wade all signed 1-year, $2 million deals. And shout out to my man Kyle Korver with a 3-year, $22 million deal. Obviously got to provide that spacing for the rest of the team because that definitely might be a problem moving forward. Then we go to our overpaid players. Tristan Thompson, and I know a lot of people may point out Kevin Love, but it's definitely Tristan Thompson with $16 million on the contract this upcoming season, and even moving forward, he's getting paid a significant amount of money. I applaud Tristan Thompson for getting his money, as always, but it could definitely lead into some complications as time continues to progress. Now, when it comes to our expiring contracts, it's a pretty long list, so let's go ahead and go to the next page. At the top of the list, we have LeBron James and Iman Shumpert. Both of them have a player option. Channing Frye, Isaiah Thomas, Jose Calderon, D Wade, Jeff Green, Derrick Rose. Now, the reason why all of this is so interesting is for 2 reasons. One, it'll be very interesting to see what's going to happen to Isaiah Thomas because he's expiring contracts, and also because he's suffering an injury in the beginning part of the season. I don't really know what type of attention he's going to be able to garnish in the upcoming offseason, especially because he wants to get paid, and rightfully so. And then when it comes to the bigger picture here, even with all of these players coming off of the books, and let's just say hypothetically Shumpert decides to opt out, they still do not have that much money to play around with when it comes to the free agency. Due to how much money Tristan Thompson, and you can make the same argument for Kevin Love, is making, it's just going to be hard for them to really add any significant pieces moving forward, which is why a lot of people have alluded to the idea of trading either Tristan Thompson or Kevin Love to the New Orleans Pelicans for DeMarcus Cousins, so you can have way more money and way more flexibility with your salary cap moving forward, but who knows what's going to happen. And speaking of the uncertainty, let's go ahead and transition to this depth chart because there's a lot of questions that I have to ask. So as you clearly see, I'm not doing the whole positions anymore because these last 3 teams, it's really positionless basketball. I'm just going to give you some guards, some forwards, and some centers. So when it comes to our guards, Isaiah Thomas, D Wade, then the forwards, we have LeBron, Jay Crowder, and then at the 5, something that I hope and I prayed that they were going to do this, and they actually did it. Shout out to my man Ty Lue. He put Kevin Love at that 5 position, especially when it comes to that spacing, because when you have D Wade and now Derrick Rose in that starting lineup, spacing is very, very key. Speaking of D Rose, my man coming off the bench along with J.R. Smith, Kyle Korver, Jeff Green, Tristan Thompson, Jose Calderon, Iman Shumpman, and Enchanting Fry. So obviously, I think the biggest note that a lot of people have been constantly making over the past few months now is their depth. Their depth has vastly grown over the past few months. With these additions to this team, it has definitely provided a pretty strong bench, and I would make an argument outside of the Golden State Warriors, the Cleveland Cavaliers clearly have the deepest rotation in the NBA. Another thing that I have to point out, Derrick Rose will be starting until Isaiah Thomas comes back. However, we just found out that Derrick Rose, he himself is suffering from an injury as well, which really shouldn't be any news to anyone, but Derrick Rose is suffering from an injury. I have not necessarily heard any definitive word from Ty Lue on what they're going to do. I've been trying to do my research, didn't really hear too much, but I wouldn't be surprised if they ran a lineup with D Wade and J.R. Smith in that starting lineup, and actually that's probably the biggest reason why I like this team. The flexibility with these lineups are almost endless. Now with that being said, let's go ahead and transition to our Twitter question of the day. And I know this is a little out of order, but you'll figure out why I'm doing this later on. Shout out to my man, the Brown Skin Assassin. His question is, did the owner and GMs do enough to make LeBron stay? Now, like I said in the beginning of this video, I don't necessarily think LeBron has spent that much time thinking about it, but I will say this. When it comes to my opinion on where LeBron should go, I just like to weigh out the options. And so far, and there are a couple of other teams, but realistically speaking, there's only 3 teams that have the ability and opportunity to actually sign LeBron. First, we have the Lakers, and unless the Lakers really and truly have a chance to sign Paul George, I don't think LeBron is going to go to that team whatsoever. And even if they do sign Paul George, it's still a stretch to think that LeBron will go on a team with a whole bunch of young players who are really unproven, and you're really only giving them 1 year to provide enough evidence to convince LeBron to go to that team, so that's really unlikely. The second team is the Houston Rockets. Like I said in my Houston video, they've actually put themselves in a financial situation to add a player like LeBron, which would be really interesting. Also, they have a lot of spacing, and they also have one of his better friends in Chris Paul, and they also have another leader in James Harden. And with those two, that should be enough to convince LeBron to come to that team, especially because offensively, they will be able to shoulder that load. But when it comes to the Houston Rockets, in my opinion, that's really just a lateral move from where he's at in Cleveland right now, which is why I think Cleveland is by far the best option for him. And speaking of Cleveland, I honestly just believe that's where he wants to be. That's where he wants to stay. He's a hometown hero. And for the most part, quite honestly, I don't think LeBron ever wanted to leave Cleveland. I just think he was forced that hand because the situation really didn't pan out in his first 7 years of his career. However, here we are now where Kobe Altman is making the moves, and that's really what LeBron wanted. That's all LeBron wanted, is for them to make the moves, be way more aggressive when it comes to their ability to put themselves in a much better situation when it comes to winning a championship. And that's what they've done this offseason. And if Kobe Altman is able to consistently do so, I think that'll be enough to convince LeBron to stay on this team. Now, let's wrap up this video with our last segment of the day, which is me trying to figure out how can this team win a championship. In my opinion, there's only 3 teams that are able to win a championship, and with the Cleveland Cavaliers, and for the rest of the 2 teams, what I will do is give you the 3 positives and the 3 negatives and kind of just wrap up the video in that way. Now, when it comes to the positive with the Cleveland Cavaliers, like I stated before, their additions with some of their playmakers will definitely give LeBron a little bit more help on the offensive end and may be able to conserve some energy so LeBron can spend it on the defensive side of the ball. Both D-Wade, Derrick Rose are able to initiate offense, and you have Isaiah Thomas as well, so that's going to be a huge help for LeBron, and he can be a much more valuable threat offensively off ball. Second positive is their flexibility, especially with the addition of Jay Crowder and Jeff Green on the defensive side. But probably the biggest thing with this team, and one of the biggest concerns last year, was their lack of depth. They added a lot of pieces to this team. Now you have a player such as Derrick Rose, J.R. Smith, Kyle Korver, Iman Shumpert, a slew of players coming off the bench, and you have that rotation, that flexibility. Now, when it comes to the negative, even though, yes, they've added some playmakers to the team, and offensively it should be able to aid LeBron in some aspects, in others, I'm really concerned about the spacing now because you have D-Wade and Derrick Rose in the backcourt with one another, especially until Isaiah Thomas comes back. And so that's going to be really, really concerning, and I don't necessarily know if the fit will be as great as a lot of people are expecting. Now, the second negative is, even though, yes, they added some defensive and flexible players such as Jay Crowder and Jeff Green, the biggest problem with them defensively really wasn't guarding Kevin Durant, because let's just be honest, no one's guarding Kevin Durant. The biggest problem was their inability to play defense in the backcourt and also their transition defense. Jay Crowder isn't that fast, neither is Jeff Green, so I don't know how they're going to favor on the transition side. And then when it comes to the backcourt defense, they still didn't add anybody whatsoever who plays defense at an above average rate. I don't necessarily know what you're going to expect out of D-Wade, Rose, and Isaiah Thomas. And also, speaking of Thomas, he's so bad defensively that they end up hiding him last year with the Celtics. So that's still a major concern for them moving forward. And then finally, when it comes to their depth, they definitely added some pieces, but I don't necessarily know how deep they're going to be when they go deep into the playoffs. Some of these players, Kevin Love, Derrick Rose, D-Wade, and now Isaiah Thomas, who's still suffering from an injury, who knows if they're going to be 100% or even available when it comes to those deep playoff runs, especially in the NBA Finals. So that's also a pretty big concern, at least in my opinion. So with that being said, I'm going to wrap up this video like this. Are the Cleveland Cavaliers the best in the Eastern Conference? Obviously, so they're going to make the finals. Now, are they going to be able to beat the Golden State Warriors? In my opinion, no. And actually, I don't even think they've gotten that much better. Maybe the gap has closed just a little bit, and so now the first two games aren't blowouts and they're a little bit closer, or maybe we can push this to a game 6. But as of right now, I feel as if the Cleveland Cavaliers are still going to lose to the Golden State Warriors because the Warriors are still just too much of a juggernaut. But please let me know what you think about the Cleveland Cavaliers, the Golden State Warriors. What do you think about LeBron possibly leaving, or even the Kyrie Irving trade? All in the comment section below. Hit the subscribe button, the notification bell to be updated when I upload these videos. Hit the thumbs up if you enjoyed the video. And as always, I will see you all tomorrow. Peace.